Bueno, vamos a lo que vinimos, que llevamos par de meses fuera. Sí, par de meses fuera por el viaje que teníamos hacia España. Pero bueno, ya estamos de vuelta. Tenemos mucha información en el día de hoy. Y les digo, ya desde ahora, que tenemos a Nathan Carr, de compañero periodista de fútbol caribeño, hoy en el programa, así que vamos a tratar de hacerlo lo más rápido posible porque la entrevista con él, el segmento con él fue bastante largo. Desde ahora les recuerdo que le den like a Facebook, a futbolboricua.net, también que le den like en Instagram, @futbolboricua, y en Twitter, también a Futbol Boricua. Y por favor, recuerda, dale subscribe ahí en YouTube y, como siempre, a la campanita para que te enteres de cada día. Mira, cuando tengamos transmisiones, cuando subimos algún video resúmenes, entrevistas, video reportajes, lo que sea, te enteres al momento. Gente, por favor, dale subscribe en YouTube y dale también ahí a la campanita para que te mantengas informado. Vamos entonces con una pequeña entrevista que le hicimos a Sergio Castro, que se la habíamos prometido hace 2 podcasts atrás. Así que, bueno, aquí lo van a tener.
Bueno, ya estamos hoy con Sergio Castro, director deportivo del Global Premier Soccer en Puerto Rico, y nos va a estar hablando de la actividad que están planificando con el Bayern de Munich acá en Puerto Rico. Sergio, ¿cuáles son los planes que tienen para agosto y esta actividad con esta persona que viene del Bayern Munich?
¿Qué tal, Edwin? Toda la gente que está sintonizando Fútbol Boricua, siempre un placer estar con ustedes. Tendremos la visita de Sebastián Dremler, que es el director deportivo de Liga Menor del Bayern Munich, y Thomas Duller, también otro entrenador del Bayern. Van a estar viendo talentos en Puerto Rico. Más adelante les voy a dar más detalles. Ya para agosto ellos están acá con nosotros. Vamos a tener la visita de estos 2 personas. Yo creo que es un acuerdo muy importante, no solo para nosotros en GPS, sino para todo el país, porque vamos a tratar de darle la oportunidad a todos los talentos del país, no solo los nuestros. Obviamente los nuestros tendrán una oportunidad adicional, pero sí es importante eso, que la gente entienda que estamos enfocados en darle muchas herramientas a Puerto Rico. Hoy traer 2 entrenadores de peso de esa talla, el que hizo a Müller, el que estuvo trabajando con todos ellos, Müller, el capitán Phillip Lahm, jugadores de la cantera del Bayern que ahora están en el primer equipo. Es importante que tengan, y más cuando tuvieron esa experiencia, traerlos acá va a ser sumamente importante. ¿Por qué no pensar en grande? Y tal vez, no sé si será un sueño o no, pero decir por qué no nuestros jugadores puedan algunos estar por allá.
Gracias, Sergio. Te pregunto, ¿de qué manera se están reforzando para la Copa de la Excelencia 3 de la Puerto Rico Soccer League?
No, seguimos igual. Nuestro equipo es el equipo joven. Vamos a tratar de darle seguimiento a los chicos. Creo que es importante darle la oportunidad a los jóvenes de Puerto Rico. Hay jugadores que son importantes, que tienen mucha proyección a nivel internacional, y tienen 16, 17 años, 18 años. Yo creo que es importante darles esa oportunidad, que no tienen un taller también. Nuestra misión no va a ser enfocarnos solamente en ganar. Obviamente queremos ganar, pero no va a ser solo eso, sino también darle la oportunidad a los chicos de acá, del patio, poder tener una oportunidad de jugar a mejor nivel, a seguir exponiéndose y por qué no, después en un futuro poder sacar jugadores más allá de no solo universidades, sino también a nivel profesional, como lo pasó con Jackie Marrero en aquel momento.
¿Qué le falta a la Puerto Rico Soccer League para llegar a ese próximo nivel que tiene que llegar?
Yo creo que tienen todas las herramientas, ellos lo están haciendo bien. Yo no podría decirte hoy, no sería justo, porque sé que hay mucha gente trabajando envuelta que está profesionalizando el deporte a ese nivel. Creo que pueden seguir mejorando día a día, siempre hay espacio para eso. Tienen gente de mucha experiencia, así que ojalá que este torneo sea muy bueno para que podamos seguir creyendo y formando parte del mismo, ¿verdad?
Bueno, entonces eso ha sido todo desde la sede de GPS Puerto Rico en Guaynabo. Regresamos entonces allá al estudio.
Eso que escucharon fue una entrevista grabada hace 2 meses, antes del comienzo de la Puerto Rico Soccer League, antes del viaje hacia España, que desde el viaje de España vamos a estar hablando en un podcast más adelante, porque estuvo muy muy interesante. En fin, ahí lo escucharon y bueno, Sergio, hay que decirlo, tu equipo está invicto en estos momentos de la Puerto Rico Soccer League, está arrasando. Así que felicidades a los chicos de GPS, veremos a ver si aguantan ese ritmo y llegan, los podemos estar apreciando en la final. Les deseamos éxito también a los demás equipos de la Puerto Rico Soccer League, porque definitivamente ha sido o está siendo un muy buen torneo. Hay algunas cositas en algunos equipos que hay que mejorar, pero bueno, para eso es el torneo, para ver lo que hay que mejorar de cara al futuro. Bueno, entonces vamos a pasar con Nathan Carr en la entrevista de el día, digamos así, del podcast de hoy. Hablamos de varias cosas, la entrevista en inglés, así que perdónenme a los que no entiendan inglés, pero me han estado pidiendo más material en inglés de algunos de nuestros seguidores que son angloparlantes, por tanto, aquí les dejamos la entrevista. Gracias. Bueno, y nos encontramos nuevamente con Nathan Carr del blog sobre el fútbol caribeño. We are again joined by Nathan Carr from is it Inside Caribbean Football again?
Hi, Edwin. No, it's the home of Caribbean
football. The home
football.
of Caribbean football. Thank you. I usually get those two confused. I'm sorry.
No problem. No problem. Thank you for having me on the show.
So, Nathan, it's been a couple of, what was it, 3 months ago that you were in the show last?
I'm just trying to think.
It was in February, I think.
Yeah, January, February, I think, when we had a nice political chat, didn't we, about
yes.
not just countries in the Caribbean, but I think we even ventured to Hong Kong at one point. So
yeah.
If you remember.
Yes. So you recently published an article in the Home of Caribbean Football about this new league that's coming up. Can you talk about us a little bit more about that?
Sure, yeah. So for any listeners that aren't aware, I'll just give a bit of context. There is a new football tournament, professional football tournament, set to come to the Caribbean, and it's called the Islands Cup Open. And it's an idea from Chris Anderson, who's the chairman of Caribbean Football Trust Limited. And the slogan of this tournament is "Nets Will Shake." It was launched at a media press conference at the Usain Bolt Sports Complex in Barbados early last month. And the aim of the tournament really is to try and give an opportunity to Caribbean players mainly, an opportunity for them to kind of play football in their native island, to earn a living through football. There are going to be various franchise clubs involved for the inaugural season, which kicks off in July, so a couple of months. And that season is going to be used just to generate exposure. Those franchises at the moment are Combine Islands, Trinbago Oilers, Barbados Challengers, Suriname Gladiators, and Jamaica Roughnecks. So those 5 at the moment are set to participate in the tournament in July, and the first proper season, Edwin, is set to kick off in June 2018. 12 weeks of football, and from what I've been told, the tournament will run on a caravan schedule. So there'll be double headers, Tuesday, Thursday, and then Saturday, Sunday. So that's the schedule that's been put forward by the Caribbean Football Trust Limited. So it's an exciting project. Obviously, this has been tried before in the Caribbean, a league in the early 1990s when Jack Warner was in charge of the region, and that ultimately failed. It didn't generate enough interest commercially, financially. It was a failure. But what Chris Anderson has stressed, I think, is that this is very much a tournament-style approach. It's not a league, so it's a short 3 or 4 month tournament that will happen throughout the summer, and then I think they're looking to maybe tour the tournament and take it around different countries around the world into the diaspora regions like Holland and France and America. So they're the basics so far of the Islands Cup Open. That's what it's called.
So basically, this isn't a league. So these teams are not. Is this even recognized by CFU?
I thought you were going to ask that. I mean, from what this is a question that I posed to the chairman of Caribbean Football Just Limited, Chris Anderson, and I did ask, do the Caribbean Football Union and indeed CONCACAF know about this? Are they aware of such a project? And I think they're still in the process. I think that's my understanding. They're still in the process of trying to maybe come to some kind of understanding with the CFU about having a tournament. But really, that's not something that I know for a fact.
Because the problem, I'm just thinking out loud here, but the problem that I see with this is basically if you don't have the sanctioning by the CFU or the CONCACAF, in this case because of what's been going on with and these new structures of building up and making CONCACAF more powerful, I would garner that CONCACAF would have to give its blessing. The problem, or the main problem, would be is that if you don't have the blessing, you don't have the sanctioning by CONCACAF, then you don't have referees, for example. You couldn't use referees from any of the local FAs. So,
unless of course independent referees are going to be brought in. Outside of the CONCACAF region. But
yes, but then you would have to think about the legality, because, for example, at least not in the United States, but then you have countries where by law let's just say that X or Y federation has a monopoly over X or Y sport. How would that work? Because if they have a monopoly, then they could be charged with trying to break the monopoly. Because if it's not sanctioned by the FAs, it brings up a whole bunch of issues. For example, and this is just an example. If you want to do a friendly, you're a match you're a match agent, right? You want to have a friendly in the United States. You want to have a friendly between either two clubs or two national teams or a national team and a club. Regardless, you want to have a friendly. You want to organize this event. You have to pay the FA. You have to go to US Soccer. You have to have their blessing. You have to pay a certain amount of money so that these games can be realized. Without that blessing, you cannot play football legally, and in the U.S. Soccer could, they just don't allow you to use their referees and or stadium facilities. This has been explained to me. I still don't understand how you can have a monopoly. But this is how it is. This is how it's been explained to me.
Well,
this is the way that FIFA works, and this isn't just in U.S. Soccer. For example, a colleague of mine or a person that I know, he's a match agent. He tried to organize a friendly between El Salvador and Guatemala. Do remember, Guatemala right now is suspended, or at least at that time was suspended. They couldn't play. No team out from Guatemala FA could play in FIFA anywhere else. They needed to play just inside. And nobody from the rest of FIFA could go to Guatemala to play, which is the reason why they didn't have any teams in the Champions League and so forth this year. So this match agent, he tries to create this. He calls the U.S. Soccer. He says, "Look, I want to do this." They said no, because if FIFA is not allowing this, we're not going to allow it. They can't play in the United States. That's just an example. I mean, this, I guess they could just do it without sanctioning, and they could get the the referees by the side. I'm just trying to look at what is not said.
I mean, what you said about the sanctioning from football associations. I mean, I know that the Dominica, Suriname, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines football associations, they are on board, and for the inaugural season this July, the national stadiums in Dominica, Suriname, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines will be used for this caravan schedule for the games. So I know that those four are on board, and the Barbados Tourism Board are also involved, and they helped promote the media conference last month. I mean, on the kind of the press pack, if you like, that I was given by the tournament, the Islands Cup Open, it does say that the Caribbean Football Trust Limited was given the mandate by the Friends of Football to collaborate with other partners in securing a working group to establish a new Caribbean tournament based in selected countries. That's what it says. So obviously they have to be aware of what you said there, being in line with the CFU and CONCACAF, because ultimately the players that will make up they'll make up the squads for the clubs. You see, some of these players will be recruited from domestic clubs in leagues across the Caribbean. So say if you have the Jamaican franchise, okay, you have the Jamaica Roughnecks, and you want to invest, I don't know, in a defender, and you want to maybe buy a defender from the Jamaican Red Stripe Premier League, you would have to get in contact
with the FA.
With the FA or the domestic club, I would imagine, in contact with the club in question.
But for example, if and here's where I see the other problem. These clubs, they all need to have sanctioning by the RFAs to be able to gain new players. And here's what I mean. For a club to receive a player from any other club in any transaction, for you to go from one team to another, you have to go through the federation through a federation database. Each player in the world that is a professional player has what's called I'm failing to remember the word in English. It's like an ID. It's like a carnet.
An ID,
an ID number that is assigned by a federation once that player goes in to that federation system. So, if, for example, you just mentioned the Roughnecks from Jamaica. Okay, so the Roughnecks from Jamaica, they want to have, they want to buy a central defender, what you were saying, from a team that is affiliated to the federation. They have to also be affiliated to the federation, because if not, that player is not going to be allowed to, by the federation, to move. Because it's in the database, it says this player belongs to X team. And if there's not a valid transaction between two members of the same federation, it's just not valid. So, why does this happen? Because when you become a club, and this is standard operating procedure around FIFA, because I've seen the documents. It says for a new club, when you're gonna work on the affiliation for the new club. Are you still there? Sorry, I just got a
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Perfect.
Don't worry.
It's just, I just got another call. Listen, when you're gonna sign in as a new club, you have to, for example, you cannot, you need to promise. It's like a promise. You need to promise that you're not gonna use the regular court system for the solving of disputes, and that you will not have contact with organizations, with sporting organizations, in the sense of, for example, if you want to have a friendly, it has to be a federation approved member.
Mm-hmm.
So
I imagine
FIFA, that's the way that FIFA at least controls football, is that all the clubs have to be joined by the hip to the federation.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense, and I imagine that for the Islands Cup Open, that they would get the green light from the football associations involved. I think that would probably happen. Another interesting aspect, by the way, about the tournament is it's going to be working on a single entity concept model as well.
Which is basically the same concept model that MLS uses.
Yeah, so it's replicating Major League Soccer in the United States, which would mean that you'd have no promotion or relegation. There wouldn't really be competition between, stakeholders at each club. So financially, they obviously think that is the best approach. That's the best way forward. So it would kind of mirror what the MLS have at the moment. Mm-hmm. And also in the Cricket Premier League as well. So you have the Caribbean Cricket Premier League, which was created 4 years ago now. They have franchises. Similarly, they have the Jamaica Tallawahs, they have the Trinbago Riders, the Guyana Amazon Warriors, Barbados Tridents. Teams like that, and they are also franchises. So I think personally that's the right way to go. Having a franchise approach, that would seem like probably the best approach to take.
I would actually, if all these things get sorted out, I'm just playing a little bit of devil's advocate here and just looking at the different scenarios that could happen. That what the problems would be for this league. But if everything gets sorted out, I would love to see a Puerto Rican team in this tournament. I think that it's like just having having a team in the NASL. You still have the local league, and you can have the NASL team, and then you can have this Caribbean team, and
But what players would make up the Puerto Rican franchise? So what kind of players would be in the squad for this Puerto Rican franchise? Would that ever happen? Do you know what I mean?
First of all, I think the main thing is that you need owners with lots of deep pockets for this type of team. If I'm not mistaken, they have to, I think I read in your article that we're talking about people with a lot of money to invest because they want to bring in Ronaldinho and all these
that's right, Ronaldinho,
veteran
Rivaldo.
Players. Yes.
Yeah.
So you have to have deep pockets because to have this type of player play, you basically need to pay them not as much as when they were playing for Barcelona or for Real Madrid, but you still need to pay a substantial amount. Right now, I don't see that happening in Puerto Rico because of the economy. But, if we could, maybe they could play in Mayagüez, for example, that has a very good stadium. It's away from the metro area. It wouldn't compete directly with Puerto Rico FC. The possibility is there. You would just need a person to put up the money. The players, you could just get the best players from the PRSL, for example. The younger best players and get at least 5 other players from different islands in the Caribbean. Maybe get Dominican players or players from Jamaica or Trinidad and Tobago, so that you have you have like a backbone of those 5 players, and then you build the rest of the squad around it with local players. So that helps to develop those players playing internationally that they might be able to play for the national team or be exported out of Puerto Rico. So
maybe an expansion is a possibility, for the future. I think 5 franchise clubs in July, and then I think it's 8. It's going to be expanded to 8, and then they're going to have 2 groups of 4 in the.
Do remember that the FIFA rules state that for you to have a sanctioned league, for example, you have to have minimum of 6. Minimum of 6. Preferably 8. So I think they're aiming for the league. They're just not calling it that.
I think the fact that it's only a short period of time, we're talking, 12 weeks is not too long. So maybe,
they're actually, when you look at the schedule, they're actually playing the amount of games you would play in 6 months in 3 weeks and in 3 months, because they're playing away and a home and away. And they're playing not only on the weekends, but they're also playing between weeks. So what you're having is 2 games a week. So that shortens the calendar from 3 months to 6 months. So technically, they're playing the exact amount of time that you would play if you were playing a 6-month league, which is the minimum required by FIFA. I don't know if FIFA would sanction them being called a league because they're not playing 6 months and because they're playing.
No, I don't think they want it to be a league. That's the thing. Yeah,
two teams a week, but a tournament, a cup, 3 months is fine. I mean, right now, Puerto Rico are playing a cup for the Division 1 teams from the Puerto Rico Soccer League, because the federation asked that the league, a Division 1 league, would play from September to May. So since the majority of the teams that are Division 1, considered Division 1, are playing in the Puerto Rico Soccer League, what they're doing is that they're expecting to play from September to May.
September to May.
So that's why they didn't start the league, say March, which is what they usually did. They went on a prolonged hiatus, playing 2 cups, playing the Bayern
Super League, I think, in the idea to bring these big marquee names over in playing capacities, coaching capacities. Ronaldinho, Malouda, Dribbble Cisse is another one, Clarence Seedorf, John Barnes, names like this. I think that's good, but what's important, I think, in the long run, is that money that's generated through revenue is reinvested into the young Caribbean players, and making sure that they are not neglected, they are not ignored, and that Caribbean-born players, homegrown, are developed, and the coaches as well are invested into. I think that's really important.
Which is the something that I find very interesting is that from all the different islands that you said, most of them, if not all of them, were former British overseas territories or are British overseas territories. So I think I think it's also a matter of because of visas, sports visas would be easier to get between these types of islands. That's why they are not playing, for example, in Cuba or in Haiti or in the Dominican Republic.
But that you never know if franchises might well develop in those countries. Should this
I'm not saying that I'm not saying that they wouldn't expand.
No, I get your
I'm
point,
saying that for the inaugural season, I think they just decided to let's just play in places where we know we can get the visas approved quickly, because we're playing between islands that were or are part of the Commonwealth. I mean, they might be independent or British overseas territories, but they're still part of the Commonwealth of Nations of the United Kingdom. So I think I would guess that it would be easier to get visas from those countries than, for example, a non-Commonwealth country or like Puerto Rico, which is in the United States. No.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And you look at the franchises involved at the moment. You got Barbados, formerly owned, controlled by the British. Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, Suriname.
Suriname, I think, is the only one that wasn't. That's not.
Obviously they got independence from the Dutch in the 70s, but I mean, maybe, as I say, maybe that. Yeah, most of them are, and obviously then you've got you've got Dominica and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia.
Hello. I think we just we hold on.
Press something on my microphone.
Don't worry. So Nathan, basically, we got cut off for like a couple of seconds there, but we're back. Since we've already discussed this the entire of the tournament, let's discuss another topic that you brought up, which is the League of Nations. What is that? I mean, I know it's not the League of Nations in the sense of the 1919 organization. It's more of the Caribbean League of Nations. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, no problem. So, the League of Nations is the idea from CONCACAF, which was discussed in greater deal at the CONCACAF Congress held in Aruba in April. And the gist of it is it would be a league that would pit the 41 members within CONCACAF against each other in a league system. So there'll be different divisions. Throughout the calendar year, teams would play against each other based on their on kind of their ranking and past success within the region. So you'd have the lower ranked teams in the lower divisions, and you'd have the Mexico, USA, Costa Rica higher up. And
it's a CONCACAF League of Nations or a Caribbean League of Nations?
So it's a CONCACAF League of Nations. So it's going to be, so the plan, I think, is to involve all 41. It's similar to what Europe have done. So UEFA created a something called a Nations League, which they're bringing about next year, and CONCACAF have very much kind of I think tried to replicate that same template. And the idea is for it to give more CONCACAF countries more competitive games throughout the calendar year. So at the moment, you know, a lot of teams within the Confederation, particularly from the Caribbean, they don't play many games. You know, once they're knocked out from maybe the Caribbean
World Cup qualifying and
yeah,
the Caribbean
World Cup qualifying, yeah, which are, you know, two-legged affairs. You know, they prepare for those. They're knocked out, and it's kind of a click of the fingers, a game over, see you later kind of thing. And you know, some countries can go a year or 2 years or 3 years, sometimes even 4 or 5 without any competitive football under their belt. So I think what the League of Nations is looking at doing is addressing this. It's not going to exclusively replace friendly matches on FIFA international window dates. I'm told, but there will still be scope and potential, you know, room for countries to arrange friendlies. Because I know the United States were saying, oh well, you know, some fans were kind of a little bit disgruntled, and they're saying we can't play now a Germany or you know, a European African team in a friendly. But Mastroianni has said that there should be room for that. I think from a Caribbean perspective, anyway, something like this is certainly a positive.
Yes, I see it a positive. But when would this? I mean, if they're not going to interfere with the let's just say the FIFA match dates, when would they be playing these games? Would they be playing in, you know, in the off season, in the summer?
No. The idea, Edwin, is that Montegliani, he visited the Bermuda FA recently, and there was an article coming out of the Bermudian media, and the idea basically is for this League of Nations to kick off next year would replace qualifying for the Gold Cup and World Cup CONCACAF. So you would no longer have World Cup qualifying CONCACAF with the Hex. And you no longer have the Caribbean Cup either.
So this whole So if what you're saying is what happens, you basically would have only first division teams going on to the World Cup and the Gold Cup. There'll
be room for so there's going to be promotion and relegation apparently.
Of course. But here's the thing. They just announced here in the island, that, you know, in 2026 we're going to have a 48.
So it's 48 teams, and CONCACAF have been awarded 6. So that's the proposal.
Okay,
anyway, 6 automatic.
So here's the thing: you go to instead of instead of the qualifying that they have now, you would basically get, if it's 6, you get the first 6 of the CONCACAF League of Nations, and those are the ones that represent CONCACAF. So let's just say, for argument's sake, the United States, Canada, Mexico, Costa Rica. Did I say Mexico? Yeah, I said Mexico. So basically, Canada, United States, Mexico, Costa Rica.
Are you counting them as Are you counting them as co-hosts? Mexico, the US, and Canada.
Yes, I'm counting them in. So
as co-hosts.
Exactly. So
okay.
So those 3 plus more. So it would be those 3, and then you would have Costa Rica, Honduras, Jamaica, maybe.
Possibly.
Trinidad and Tobago and Panama.
Yeah. A lot can happen in 10 years, though, Edwin. A lot can happen, you know.
I know, but if we were to take that for today, those would be the teams that would go. So
well, not necessarily, because if you're basing it on FIFA rankings, Jamaica would not even get in there if you base it on FIFA.
I'm actually taking into account only CONCACAF rankings. When you go to the FIFA World Rankings, you just switched only to CONCACAF. So you would get the. I'm just thinking about the top 10 CONCACAF teams. Actually, let's do that. Let's check the CONCACAF.
Because I'm pretty sure at the moment you've got Curacao up there. Haiti are definitely up there as well.
Let's make sure. Let's see. So let's go to the rankings, right?
Recently, by the way, until recently, I can't remember what month it was. Trinidad and Tobago were not even in the top 10 in the CONCACAF. Weren't even in the top 10, and they're in the hexagonal as well.
Okay, so we're here.
So you got Mexico.
We're gonna make sure. So now we're gonna go to CONCACAF. So right now the top 10 for CONCACAF are in the following order: Mexico, Costa Rica, USA, Panama. Those are the first 4. Haiti in 5th place. Honduras in 6th. Curacao in 7th. Jamaica in 8th. Trinidad and Tobago in 9th. And then you have Guatemala in 10th. But Guatemala right now cannot play, so you would go for Antigua and Barbuda.
Yeah.
So that would be your 10.
So you've got Haiti in there. If we're doing it at the moment, which is obviously hypothetical, you'd have Haiti in there as an automatic. You'd have Curacao in there in the playoffs. You'd have Costa Rica, which is obviously from Central America. You'd have the big boys, Mexico, USA. I mean, Mexico are near on guaranteed. Same with the United States.
And same as Canada.
And if they co-host. I mean, personally, I don't agree with Canada qualifying automatically, getting automatic entry. I mean, they haven't qualified for a World Cup since 1986. They're a pretty mediocre team. I'm sorry, but they are Canada. They are pretty.
Well,
they're pretty average.
I mean, we've beaten them. So.
Yeah, and to be honest, I mean, we talk about a co-hosting. You know, I think all of so the US would have something like 60 games they'd host. I think that's right, and they'd have the quarterfinals onwards. So Mexico would only have 10, and I think Canada would only have 10 games. So, you know, there is the argument there. Can the US just host it themselves 2026? Do they even need the support from?
Oh,
Mexico?
they can, but you need to understand. This is a publicity stunt. I mean, this is the way of Canada saying, "I want a World Cup because I want a World Cup." And well, let's just say instead of fighting between us 3, let's just all 3 co-host and be there.
That would guarantee.
So
that would guarantee the North. That would guarantee the North American bloc, wouldn't it? They would obviously.
That's the whole point.
Get automatic qualification. Yeah.
So
a lot can happen in. Think of the qualifying format. Say if that begins in 2023, it's usually 3 years before the World Cup. You know, that's 6 years from now. You know, things can change during that time. So there could be potentially more, higher Caribbean representation. Certainly like to think 1 or 2 Caribbean teams would make it into the World Cup. But just going back quickly to the League of Nations, what that is basically trying to do in a nutshell is give countries just more game times. You know, the likes of the Bahamas, Montserrat, Anguilla, British Virgin Islands, Turks and Caicos Islands. You know, these countries don't play regularly. The Bahamas, for example, the last time that they played competitively was in March 2015. You know, March 2015.
I actually thought it was way back in the 90s. Because seriously, I have never. I mean, aside from World Cup qualifying, I've never seen Bahamas play anything else. I've never seen them play in the Caribbean Cup.
Yeah, I don't think they've played in the Caribbean Cup for a little while. Certainly this year they weren't in there, and neither 2014. But World Cup qualifying to March 2015, they lost to Bermuda in the two legs. But I suppose with the Bahamas, they focus more on beach soccer, and they're actually hosting the Beach Soccer World Cup at the moment. They play tonight against Ecuador. But teams like Montserrat, you know, they're very inactive. Anguilla, you know, try, but I understand that financial resources can be a problem, and this really is where Montegliani's.
But I mean, what are we talking about? Financial resources. All of these federations are getting $1.5 million a year, so that they can develop and run their national teams now. So, in terms of finances, I mean, do you know how much $1.5 million would be in and I don't know if Anguilla, because Anguilla is I still think it's still a British overseas territory.
It is, yeah. It's
so
overseas territory.
That would be that I could understand. It'd be like, I don't know, 800,000 or 900,000 pounds. But when we're talking about places like Trinidad and Tobago and you know, independent countries that have their own currency. Seriously, $1.5 million? That's a lot of money in their currency.
Well, it is. And obviously now with the FIFA Forward initiative, that's replaced the goal project kind of approach from Infantino and the new FIFA, there is going to be even more money, you know, being distributed to national associations.
No, I'm talking about those 1.5 million is the FIFA Forward program.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about the old one. The old one, they only got 250,000. We're talking about
the financial assistance program.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So you've got the FIFA Forward initiative now, which is going to bring about even more money for confederations and member associations, and that does help. But you know, you say if you're Turks and Caicos Islands, for example, you know, you do rely heavily on FIFA financial support. You know, you do. But I think I read recently that, I think this is right, the figure was 60,000 USD. I think it costs to play an international football game, and that's factoring in, you know, travel, accommodation, you know, looking after the players, sorting everything out, the whole operation. So I do think some, like Montserrat, for example, as well, they were struggling with funding and their grassroots program recently.
I could understand Montserrat. Montserrat is just like half of the island is only habitable.
Yeah.
And they have what?
I'm talking about
800,000, 700,000 people in Montserrat.
What, in Montserrat? No. Sorry, did you say 700,000 or 7?
More or less, that's what I think they have. I think less.
No, Montserrat's about 5,000 or so. 5,000 people. Because obviously the Soufriere Hills, yeah,
the volcano doesn't make the island a lot of uninhabitable zones.
Uninhabited, yeah. By quite a lot of the island was left ruined, unfortunately. But I am obviously kind of referencing the smaller islands within the Caribbean. Obviously, you know, Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, they are financially better off. You know, they can afford to play friendlies against European opposition, and you know, and St. Kitts are another one that have been doing that recently. So yeah, the League of Nations, I mean, it will guarantee you take a team like Bermuda, for example, and Montegliani was saying this when he visited Bermuda. You know, they're looking at getting 9 games per year. 9 games per year.
That would
the League of Nations.
I mean, for Puerto Rico, that would be awesome because we barely I mean, we have this year, for example. This year we don't have a friendly in calendar right now. We had one against Nicaragua, and that fell through because they wanted to do it outside of FIFA match dates.
Yeah.
So
because obviously Puerto Rico, you know, the Caribbean Cup qualifying final round in October.
And we sunk on that. And
So that's the thing. That's the thing. So this League of Nations, from Puerto Rican perspective, you're potentially getting, I suppose, 9 games a year. That's 36 games over a 4-year cycle. Which it's an improvement. It's an improvement, and I'm all for that. What I'm personally not for, and this sits a little bit uneasy with me, is the League of Nations being played at the expense of the Caribbean Cup. Now, for me, the Caribbean Cup is unique to the Caribbean. It's a tradition in Caribbean football. It's been going since 1978, when the Caribbean Football Union was formed. That doesn't sit too well with me. That the idea that the Caribbean Cup would be scrapped, in favour of the League of Nations. If they could try and fit both tournaments into the calendar, which I don't know how feasible that would be. Then I think that would be a scenario.
They would have to assign, for example, instead of, I think what they could do is that. They would say, they would separate the summer months. This would force the Caribbean to have to play the international calendar, in the sense that you would have to play the summer months, the Caribbean Cup. You would have to play from June, either in the month of June or the month of July, and you would have to play it in one. And actually, that would be awesome. That you could have like a mini World Cup, mini Caribbean Cup, in the sense that you could develop it as a mini World Cup, and then you could go from one nation to another every 2 years, and that would actually help the economies, because you don't have to. All you would need is four stadiums. You don't need these huge mega stadiums, because we don't how things in the Caribbean work. But if you have like 4 stadiums, you could have it. In Puerto Rico, you could even have it in Puerto Rico, because we have two stadiums at the moment that are FIFA approved. It's obviously the Lubriel, and the other one was the Centroamericano in Mayagüez, and then you would only have to get 2 more to be FIFA approved, which you could do in Ponce, which is in the south part of the island, and then the other one in Fajardo. And the Fajardo Stadium is literally perfect. It's soccer specific. It was built for soccer. It has a maximum of I think it was 5,000 people that can sit there, or less. 1,500 to 3,000 people sitting. Yeah. So, and you could even add more if you needed. You could just add more sitting around it. So, that would actually be an awesome.
Yeah, what you said there, Edwin, is it's kind of, you take away the qualifying aspect of it. So you wouldn't be able to have all the qualifiers. You just have to have the main thing. And of course, the Caribbean Cup finals are happening next month. In late June, from the 22nd to the 25th of June in Martinique. You've got the Caribbean Cup, as you've got Curacao, Martinique, and Jamaica, French Guiana. Those are the semi-finals. So it's kind of a similar thing to what you talked about there, although it's just one stadium being used, I think, in Martinique.
Precisely, but then you just expand it to the entire. How many islands are in the Caribbean? What is it?
Altogether. or in the Caribbean Football Union.
In the Caribbean Football Union, yeah.
So you got 31 in the Caribbean Football Union.
31. So let's see. 31 divided into groups of 4. You would need 8 groups. And what you could do is
8 groups.
And what you can do is that you can have several teams that, because of the FIFA rankings, well, they get in automatically, and then you have a preliminary group that plays prior to the entire event. So they play.
When are you going to play this though? That's the thing. When are you going to play?
You play it in the preliminary in the same month. For example, let's just say
the same month.
Yeah, in the same month you play in the same month and in the same country. So you have the preliminaries. I don't know. You have the preliminaries 2 weeks before the start of the tournament, and then the winners of those. Of the preliminary groups, then they pass to the main groups, and then you have, instead of having 8, you could have 4.
And this would all take place within 1 month then, you think?
All of this would take place within 1 month.
I'm just thinking, would that jeopardize at all from a CONCACAF perspective, this League of Nations proposal? You know, would it, because they presumably want to take advantage of every FIFA window date, every one, so we're talking March, June, September?
No, because this would be playing in July. See, July.
So July is not a FIFA window then.
July is not a FIFA. It's not a FIFA window.
No, so that's the thing. But if you did play it outside of a FIFA window, the Caribbean Cup, I think that would hurt the quality of the tournament because
not necessarily
because you would not get.
Remember that July is the month that there's no football in the rest of the world. So that's what I'm saying, that the CFU would have to change its calendar. The CFU members would have to change their calendars into a September to May calendar to play, as in the 12 months, and the 6 months or whatever you want to call it, 8, 7, or 9 months, and then
possibly.
Then leave
just
July open so that the biannual, or you could even do it instead of 2 times a year, once every 4 years, so you have like a Euro Cup style of tournament. That because we're gonna have the League of Nations, and they're gonna have a lot of more games. Because do remember that one of the reasons why we have a biannual Caribbean Cup, it's precisely so that these teams could have more games. So if we're gonna have the League of Nations, what you do is you eliminate, instead of every 2 years, you make it every 4 years, and then that leaves time for preparations and having the structures done and prepared. You don't need you and then you have the different teams bidding to host the tournament.
I mean, the only thing with that is you factor in the amount of games. So you're going from playing very, very few sporadic games to playing, let's say, 9 through the League of Nations, and then you add the Caribbean Cup into that as well in July. I mean, I'm not sure if the players. I mean, you don't want to tire out or exhaust.
Well, that would only happen once every 4 years, which is why I'm saying that you would have to, instead of having biannually, you would have to change it into a once every 4 years.
Right. But then I suppose you've got the Copa America Centenario style tournament that was a massive success last year. You know, if that happens every 4 years, the Gold Cup now might well happen every 4 years. Because the promotion and relegation on the article that I read on Bermudian Media, the promotion and relegation, that would be taken into consideration at the end of the 4-year cycle. So that would be for Gold Cup and the World Cup. So it seems as if the Gold Cup might well take place every 4 years instead of every 2 years, which obviously is the case at the moment.
Which would basically make it fit. So, for example, players would have 1 month off every year, because if at least in the Caribbean, if they play, they start playing in September, then you have June. Those players that aren't going to be playing in the national team, they'll probably get June off, and they'll probably get August off. So and listen. They're athletes. they're professional. They're supposed to be professional athletes. And
I take that point. If you're going from literally 0 to like 12
and then you probably,
games
and considering how things are in the Caribbean, you probably will get anyways half of December and half of January off. So you would have to have like a open apertura and clausura type of tournament, which means that they would actually be playing from February to May, and then from September to December. So that would leave them more time off. So you have January off, or half of January off, and half of December off. So you have a month off, plus you have another month off in August. That's 2 months off. And the rest is playing, and not every player is playing in the national team. So I think 2 months off in the year for athletes that are supposed to be professionals, it's pretty okay. And if you have,
I suppose
if you have the
it's all
Gold Cup
relative,
one
isn't it?
year, and then the Caribbean Cup the other year, and then the Copa America another year, that's actually good for the region because it brings more quality, more players playing up.
Mm.
And then you can
Well,
have
I certainly hope that
champion of the CFU tournament having automatic berths in the next Copa America and the next Copa de Oro, and that would actually make the cup, the Caribbean Cup, more interesting.
Mm. Hopefully, I do hope that the Caribbean Cup does stay put. You know, I think it would be a bit of a shame for it to. And what you said there about trying to fit it in, potentially, you know, it's looking at it logistically. Could it be fit in? Could it be fitted in? Possibly. But then, if the thing is, if a Gold Cup does happen every 4 years, then surely that would take its place. You know. Surely that would take, unless you do rotate it. Unless you rotate it, you have a Caribbean Cup 1 year, you have the Gold Cup the next year, you have the Copa America Centenario.
You would have to have, for example, 1 year you have the Caribbean Cup, the other year you have the Gold Cup, and then the Confederations. And the teams that aren't the year that Confederations happen, then you have the Copa America.
But the thing is, in the year
at the same time of the Confederations.
In the year that you have the Caribbean Cup, though, you're only including Caribbean teams. So what do the North American and the Central American countries do? Because I think the Gulf brings them up together.
Do remember, Central Americans, they have the Central American Cup.
But will that still exist? Will that still exist? Copa Centroamericana, will that
Copa
still go?
Centroamericana that's still going on. That's the actual tournament that qualifies to the Gold Cup.
But what I'm saying is the League of Nations, that's reportedly going to replace the qualifying process for the Gold Cup and the World Cup. You see, so would the Copa Centroamericana
but you still have the Copa. You can make it that it qualifies to the Copa America. And who cares if it doesn't qualify? You're the champion of the Caribbean for 4 years. You have bragging rights in the Caribbean.
No, that's true. That's true. That is true. I know that for the Copa America Centenario, the Caribbean, so Jamaica were the 2014 Caribbean Cup champions, so they got through into that tournament virtue of winning the Caribbean Cup, if that makes sense.
Yes.
You know, and then for the playoffs, for the Copa America Centenario playoffs, you had Panama, Cuba, and Haiti, Trinidad and Tobago. They were in the playoffs through their finishes at the Gold Cup in 2015. So, you know, this is all good logistical stuff, I suppose, for the powers to be to kind of have a little think about, you know.
Yeah, but listen, we have reached the end of our show today. I want to thank you for coming over to the show. You know that these microphones are open for you anytime you want. All you need to do is tweet me. And I want to thank you, Nathan, for being here and you know, talking and having this 1 hour debate with me.
No, thank you very much for having me on, Edwin. Again, it's been a really interesting discussion. So I really appreciate it and look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Sure. Esto ha sido todo por Radio FBNET. Le damos las gracias a todos los que nos han sintonizado y espérenlo, que por ahí viene otro episodio de Radio FBNET. Dale like, suscríbete a nuestro canal aquí en YouTube y sobre todo dale a la campanita para que te enteres de los días que tenemos transmisiones y cada vez que subamos un artículo. Esto ha sido todo por hoy. Hasta la próxima. Chao.